There are details you're trained to notice as a deputy sheriff. Small things, patterns that don't fit. And then there are moments when every part of that training goes quiet at once, because what you're seeing doesn't belong to any procedure you know. The night I saw those red lights on that Appalachian highway, I didn't feel fear. I felt certainty. The kind that tells you this will be written down, filed away, and never truly explained. It was a routine night shift. Just me, my cruiser, and miles of forest pressing in from both sides of the road. No towns, no houses, no cell towers. The kind of stretch where even the radio sounds out of place. I was already thinking about the end of my shift when those lights appeared ahead, low and steady, half swallowed by darkness. Someone had gone off the road. That was the only explanation that made sense, and the only reason I slowed down. As I pulled up behind the car, my headlights revealed it sitting at a wrong angle, nose dipped into the ditch, rear still kissing the asphalt. No hazard lights, no movement inside. I killed my engine, stepped out, and called out instinctively. My voice didn't travel far. The forest swallowed it almost immediately, leaving behind a silence that felt heavier than it should have. I took my flashlight and started toward the vehicle. And after just a few steps, I noticed my breathing had changed, not from exertion, from cold. I stopped, confused, watching pale vapor curl out of my mouth. It was July. The air should have been thick, warm, buzzing with insects. Instead, every step closer to that car felt like walking into a refrigerated room. By the time I reached the rear bumper, my fingers were numb through my gloves. That's when I saw the frost. The entire car was coated in it. Thick, crystalline layers clinging to the chrome, the mirrors, the door handles. The metal looked burned white by cold. I ran my light along the body and caught the shape beneath the ice. A late 1960s Holloway Monarch, dark blue paint barely visible under decades-old design choices. It didn't belong on that road. It didn't belong in this century, and it sure as hell didn't belong in summer. I moved to the driver's side window. The frost there was dense, opaque, like the glass had been sealed shut by winter. My sleeve brushed against it, and instinctively, I wiped a clear patch away. The sound it made, a dry, cracking scrape, sent a chill through me that had nothing to do with temperature. The car was empty. No driver, no passenger, no movement. The interior looked untouched. Aged leather, clean dashboard, no frost inside at all, as if the cold had stopped at the glass and refused to go further. My mind scrambled for explanations. Maybe someone wandered off into the woods. Maybe they were injured. Maybe I just hadn't looked hard enough yet. Then I glanced at the license plate. It was an old format, narrow letters, faded paint. I wrote the number down in my notebook without thinking, suddenly aware that right beside the driver's door, the air was well below freezing. My phone came out next. Pure reflex. No signal. And standing there in the dark, breath turning white in the middle of July, I realized something was very wrong, and I was alone with it. I stepped a few feet away from the car and checked my phone again. Still nothing. No bars. No flicker. I lifted it higher, turned in a slow circle, even climbed a step up the ditch embankment. The moment I moved farther from the frozen car, a weak signal flashed on the screen. 1 bar, maybe 2. I stepped back toward the driver's door, and it vanished instantly. It wasn't just bad reception. It felt localized, like the cold had its own perimeter, and I was standing right inside it. That was enough to push me back toward my cruiser. I keyed the radio, keeping my voice calm, professional, the way muscle memory takes over when something feels wrong. I called dispatch. Then I tried again on a secondary channel. All I got was static, thick, uneven, pulsing. I adjusted the volume, switched frequencies, repeated my call signs. For a split second, beneath the interference, it almost sounded like something was trying to form words without knowing how. Then it was gone, leaving only noise. Waiting there didn't make sense anymore. Protocol or not, standing alone next to a frozen car with no comms wasn't smart. 15 minutes down the road was a small service station, the only one open overnight. Ed was on duty. Same Ed who'd been there for years, who knew every deputy by name and every mile marker by heart. I decided to get help the old-fashioned way. As I pulled back onto the highway, I checked my mirror. The red lights were still there, steady and unmoving, until the road curved and swallowed them whole. The drive into town felt longer than it should have. The radio stayed dead the entire way, and the warmth inside the cruiser took its time creeping back into my hands. Ed looked up when I walked in, took one look at my face, and set his coffee down without a word. I told him what I'd found, kept it clean, factual. Car off the road, no occupants. And then I mentioned the frost, the temperature, the model. That's when his expression shifted, just slightly, like a man realizing a joke isn't a joke at all. We headed back out together, his tow truck following close behind my cruiser. The road was exactly how I remembered it. Same curves, same trees, same mile marker coming up dead center in my headlights. I slowed, pulled over, and stepped out before the engine even cooled. Ed joined me, flashlight in hand, scanning the ditch. There was nothing there. No car, no frost, no disturbed ground, not even flattened grass. It looked like nobody had ever left the road at all. I stood there longer than I should have, replaying every step in my head, every detail. Ed finally broke the silence, careful with his words. "Long shifts do things to people," he said. "Fatigue messes with perception." I nodded, because it was the reasonable thing to do. Then I opened my notebook under the dome light and showed him the license plate number I'd written down. The ink hadn't faded. My handwriting hadn't changed. And suddenly, being tired didn't explain anything anymore. I didn't go home after that. I told Ed I'd see him later, got back in my cruiser, and drove straight to the department. Fatigue was the easy explanation, the kind you want to accept because it lets you sleep. But the number in my notebook wouldn't let me. It sat there, dark and precise, written in the same hand I'd used 1,000 times before. If what I'd seen was nothing, then that number had no reason to exist. The station was quiet when I walked in. Too quiet. Just the low hum of fluorescent lights and the smell of old paper and coffee that had burned hours ago. I logged into the system and ran the plate the same way I would any other. No shortcuts, no assumptions. I expected an error, a dead end, something that would tell me the format was obsolete or invalid. Instead, the screen paused longer than usual before returning a result. The status read, "Archived." That alone made me sit back. Archived meant old, closed, buried. I clicked through, half expecting the file to be empty or corrupted. It wasn't. The case opened cleanly, typed reports scanned into the system decades after they were written. 2 names appeared at the top. A married couple, last seen driving through this county in 1968. Vehicle listed beneath, a Holloway Monarch, dark blue. Same model, same description, same stretch of Appalachian highway. I kept reading, my pulse steady but heavy. According to the report, the car had vanished somewhere near the same mile marker I'd been standing on less than an hour earlier. No witnesses, no debris, no signs of a crash. Search parties had combed the woods for weeks and found nothing. Not the couple, not the car, not even a piece of chrome. The case was eventually closed for lack of evidence and filed away, where unanswered things tend to go. I stared at the screen, trying to force the dates to make sense, trying to tell myself coincidences still existed. But all I could think about was the frost, the silence, the way the cold had stopped at the glass like a boundary. I realized then that what I'd felt on that road wasn't danger. It was proximity. I hadn't stumbled onto an accident. I'd stepped too close to something that didn't belong entirely in my time. I shut the file and sat there longer than I needed to, listening to the buildings settle around me. When I finally stood up, the chill followed me. Not on my skin, but deeper, like a memory my body had decided to keep. I've driven that highway countless times since, day and night, summer and winter. And every time I pass that mile marker, my hands tighten on the wheel as the temperature seems to drop just enough for me to notice. Nothing ever appears in the ditch, but I still feel the cold. If this story unsettled you, leave a like and let the shadows know. Subscribe for more tales you shouldn't hear after dark. And if you've seen something you can't explain, tell us in the comments. We're always listening.